Hello guys, it's been a while. Yes, it has been a long time, and apologies for the delay, and I hope I can keep my consistency up moving forward. So in this video I wanted to talk about my second major project that I was working on. So guys, you must have checked out my previous video where I showed a preview of the fish tank that I created. The idea here was to create a self-sustaining tank that functions on its own with minimal tech as possible. I'm not talking about big expensive carbon dioxide equipment, or I'm not talking about big expensive lights or any fancy setups. Very simple fish tank that is self-sustaining, which means that the fish, when they get their feed, they poop, and the poop goes to the soil, and the plants literally grow from the soil, and they produce the oxygen for the fish. So that's the whole idea behind it. I actually had a similar setup a long time back, but that was not in Singapore, that was back in Sri Lanka. It was just a simple tank with a lot of rocks inside, and I added 7 guppies, and I put a few plants inside, and then that's it, just kept it outside. We usually add any household related food stuffs, which can be rice, which can be bread or soybeans, more of these things. Whenever I start putting in the food, I can see tiny little new generation coming up. So the fishes were actually breeding inside, and what was interesting was there was a certain layer of algae that actually formed all over the tank, because the tank did have exposure to sunlight, but the water was always crystal clear. Surrounding the tank there was this nice layer of algae, which kind of has always bubbles in it. So looking back at things now, I think the algae was pretty much the plant there, and it was not cloudy in the tank. Water was crystal clear. So basically I wanted to create the same setup here in Singapore, but of course we always try to achieve something or head down in one direction, but what happens or what the situation demands is another thing. So this is what this journey is all about, and I'm going to share with you the mistakes that I have made, how I started off. Alright, so let's get on to the video. So here we go. So this is how I started off with basic tank, rocks, aqua soil, and just a simple arrangement, just trying to play around with the rocks and the soil, and bought some plants. Yes, I hear you. What about cycling? Did I add my fishes without cycling the tank? Yes, I did make a mistake, because I thought that the aquarium plants that I buy from all the aquariums, they will have the bacteria in it, but I made a deadly mistake. And also the tank that I had back home in Sri Lanka actually was well water, so well water naturally has this bacteria, and here in Singapore you actually get chlorinated water, where obviously I removed the chlorine before adding in all the fishes. But unfortunately I did make a mistake on the cycling, but somehow managed to battle it through with regular water changes and working with enough time. And what you're seeing here is the new addition of fishes, because initially I started off with the guppy and then I added more fishes. And here's one beginner's mistake. Even though some websites say that certain fishes are very friendly, fishes do have their individual personality, so sometimes they do become aggressive. There's one particular swordtail that was quite aggressive and chasing everyone off. Had a soft corner for him, so eventually ended up buying a separate tank for him. Another mistake that I did was also the selection of the fishes. Sometimes I went into the wrong shops and bought quite a lot of very weak fishes. With my experience now, I can tell which ones are the weak ones and which ones are quite strong. So there was a big price that I paid, because sometimes a sick fish can also infect other healthy fishes in the tank. That's one thing you need to really watch out for. So just to get the initial population started, you need to make sure that we start off with the most healthiest fishes, and then they are the ones who are going to populate the tank. So the selection of the fishes were basically guppies, mostly live bearers, and these can actually give birth to live youngs instead of hatching through eggs. And I also got Cory fish just to make sure that, so they usually take care of the substrate bottom, and since the sunlight was coming through, I did get algae growing on the walls of the tank, so I bought 2 Otocinclus to take care of that. But so letting sunlight in was actually a mistake, which I will explain to you later down the line. But for the time being, during these initial stages of my tank, I did not really have any problems. It was still manageable. When it comes to plants, I did use submerged as well as floaters as well. Mostly I bought from aquarium shops. You need to really watch out for dragonfly eggs. I did get one of the guys growing up in my tank, and thank God I did find him at an early stage. Someone of this size, I'm sure he had a good time feeding on the tiny fishes inside. but you need to really watch out for these guys as well, especially when you're buying plants from aquarium stores, because they do grow the plants in open air, and they will, most of them, sometimes they might have these eggs in them. The snails played a huge part in cleaning the tank and ensuring that the walls are neat. They were part of the cleaning crew, and they got along well with everyone in the fish tank. Whenever there is food left around, they always go for it, and they do reproduce very fast. So sometimes you used to wonder what really happens at the back of my tank, because most often I find a lot of empty shells at the back of the tank. Till this date, I have no idea what's going on, because it happens till now. I always find empty shells at the back of my tank. This is a big mystery to me. It's still research ongoing. Well, if you guys can solve this mystery, that would be great. Please, the comment section is all yours. And when it comes to the filter, eventually I had to start using a filter because the bioload was quite heavy, and considering the amount of plant matter and all the bioload, I did have a few occasions of ammonia nitrite problems, so I decided to help the tank with usage of a filter. So I decided to go for the sponge filters, which are quite cheap, more reliable, and very effective, and very less minimal maintenance. So as mentioned before, this is where the plant slightly took a bit of a deviation. This was not the direction that I really wanted to be heading towards, but again, now that I'm slowly getting a hang of this hobby, I wanted to explore more options, and again, adding a filter is not going to really deviate much from the plan. So the plan is to stick to the low tech as much as possible, so sponge filter was one of the additions. So alongside the sponge filter, I also decided to add more aeration to the tank, which is quite critical, especially when your bioload is really high. You really need the bacteria, which is the aerobic bacteria that needs oxygen, so you really have to aerate the tank, otherwise you will have a lot of dead spots in the tank. So do get aeration and filter, it's actually a must. So both the aeration and the filter significantly reduced the time that I had to spend on the tank, because before that I had to do quite a lot of water changes, constantly checking the water parameters. So with the addition of the filter and more aeration into the tank, the amount of time that I had to spend on the tank significantly reduced. Speaking of aeration, considering all the bubbles that was coming at the surface, the floater plants, their population started declining, and eventually what was left was just a few duckweed, and even they were not able to survive. So the aeration plants disappeared, and it was only the submerged plants later on. So that's it guys, I think I pretty much covered most of the key topics that I wanted to cover for the first video. So on my next video I will show you around the daily or the weekly maintenance routines for this tank. And just to give you a wider picture, as my channel is about yesterday, today and tomorrow, what you're seeing here is actually yesterday. So this year's tank is completely different, it has evolved to the next level, and here's a preview of it. And of course I will be covering this later down my video on the making of this particular tank. So till then, please bear with me, I will keep you all updated on the progress. So take care, stay safe, and thanks for watching the video guys.